So we're wrapping this up, and our last adventure into this whole subject of what makes you happy is something that, again, like most of the things we looked at, most of us know to be true, but actually applying that in our lives, what we know and what we do often, there's a big disconnect in those things. The stuff that we're going to look at, our culture and our society says is all about this. If you want to be happy, the secret to happiness is going in this direction, is found over here. But what we're going to talk about this morning is actually going to push back against that, and you might struggle with that, because what I'm going to say to you today is happiness is not found over there where world and society and culture tells us this is the secret to happiness. Actually, happiness is found in the opposite direction. Our happiness is found over here. Now, I hope this is going to work. Yes, there you go. So that's great. So here's a statement about happiness. As long as you are all about you, you won't be happy. That's what happiness is all about. As long as you are all about you, you will not be happy. And actually, we could change that word from won't to can't. Not just you won't be happy, you can't be happy. As long as your life is orientated about you and what you want and who you want to look like and what you want to do and where you want to be and what you want to eat and all of those things, as long as you are orientated around your life. And actually, culture, society, the world in general says do this. Actually focus on yourself. Look after number one. Make sure it's all about you. And there is the secret to happiness. But actually, what we know deep down is that we won't be happy and we can't be happy. And the reason that is true is because this. You can't fulfill you. You can't fulfill you. You need more than you have to offer. Even if you were able to get you to be exactly as you wanted to be, if you were to get you to look the way that you wanted to be and to be the weight that you wanted to be and have the job that you wanted to have and the house that you wanted to have and the skills that you wanted to have and the TV that you wanted to have, if you were able to get you and your life to be exactly as you would want it to be, you still wouldn't be fully happy because you need more than you have to offer. And this is so counterintuitive because we say to ourselves, if only I could have that, if only I could go there, if only I could look like that, if only I could be like that, then I would be happy. But it's not true. We know actually deep down that happiness is far deeper than that, and it's because of this other truth. You can't acquire, consume, or exercise your way to happiness. You can't go out and buy something. You can't go out and consume something or eat something or take something. You can't exercise and get yourself physically to look the way you want to look, and that results in happiness. And we know this is true, but so often when we look at our lives, we think, well, actually, I can acquire it, or I can consume it, or I can exercise my way to happiness. And the reason we do that is we always compare ourselves to other people. We look at other people and we think, if only I had what they had, then I would be happy. If only I was in the same situation or the same position that they had, then I would be happy. If I had their car, and if I lived in their house, and if I had their salary, and if I had their kids as opposed to my kids, and if I went on their holidays, and if I looked like them, and if I had their fitness and their physique, and if I had their golf clubs, and if I had their wife, then I would be happy. And we think that if I had all those things, then I would be happy because we look at them and we think, well, they look happy, so all I need to do is to be like them and I would be happy. But chances are, even though they have one of those or go there or drive one of those, they are still not happy. And if they are happy, it's not because of those things. They haven't acquired the happiness. They haven't consumed the happiness. They haven't exercised their way to be happy. Happiness is not found in those things. So you can't find happiness this way, but you can serve, help, and volunteer your way to happiness. There's been extensive research done on the link between sort of helping others and our happiness. Just Google it. Stick it in, open up your phone and Google health and happiness and helping others, those sort of things. You will find study after study after study. You will find research after research after research with statistical data about when we stop thinking life is all about us and we orientate our lives towards other people. When we help other people, when we give of ourselves and give of our time to other people, people, we find fulfillment, we find happiness in a way that we just can't do when we think life is all about us. I want to quickly share with you a review of a report that was undertaken by researchers at the London School of Economics. And it says this: helping others kindles happiness, as many studies have demonstrated. When researchers at the London School of Economics examined the relationship between volunteering and measures of happiness in a large group of American adults, they found the more people volunteered, the happier they were. The more people volunteered, the happier they were, according to a study in social science and medicine. Compared with people who never volunteered, the odds of being very happy rose 7% among those who volunteer monthly, and 12% for people who volunteered every 2 to 4 weeks. Among weekly volunteers, 16% felt happy, a hike in happiness compared to having an income of $75,000 to $100,000 versus $20,000, says the researchers. Basically, what they are saying is if you volunteer once a week, that equates to a happiness hike of $80,000. And before you say, money doesn't make me happy, we saw last week that actually the correct use and the correct management of money actually can make us happy. I want you to be happy, but I can't give you £80,000. But can I give you anything else? Is there any other way that I can make you happy? Before you worry, this is not a plug for volunteering at FBC. That might be a happy coincidence from what we talk about, but that's not what I'm after here. I am not after your time this morning. I want something for you, not something from you. And this research, this is just an example of tons of stuff that's out there that shows that when actually we give ourselves away, when we actually orientate our lives in a different way and not about ourselves, we discover something that is not there or isn't possible. Now, there's another study I wanted to show you quickly, some of the research from that, or the results from that. It was done in the UK, and it was spread over a span of 40 years. 40 different studies over a span of 20 years. And they all looked at the same sort of correlation between our health and well-being and this sort of thing about volunteering and helping others. And the results are staggering. It's astounding. Basically, it said that people who volunteer, they have less depression, less heart disease, and less stress. And in teenagers who volunteer, there's less drug use and less unplanned pregnancies. Now, this isn't like, join the kids team and you won't have any more kids because, well, maybe you won't actually. If you do join our kids team, you might. Anyway, that's a whole different things. Because it sort of helped orientate our lives. And actually, the researchers found that even if you have to make your teenagers volunteer on a regular basis, do it. Even if they do it with a bad attitude, there is still positive effects. That when we do this, when we orientate our lives towards other people, actually we are healthier and we are happier. But it's not just about a decrease in stuff, there's an increase. Our psychological well-being goes up. Our physical health actually is improved. Our self-esteem is improved. Our longevity is improved. Our quality of life is improved. If I were to bring Kim back up and talk about some of the stuff that she does and how she speaks with people through her health coaching and well-being coaching, I'm sure Kim would confirm this sort of stuff, that actually when we orientate our lives away from us, and one of the 5 ways to well-being is actually about volunteering, is about doing things for other people. Actually, volunteering helps you to live longer. It actually increases your immune system in some amazing way. Scientists are confirming something that we have known to be true since Jesus walked on this planet. That actually they're confirming the stuff that Jesus was about and what Jesus was talking about. So we're going to take a look at something that Jesus said. It's a story that Jesus told. It's a famous story that Jesus told. And again, chances are, if you've never been in church before, if you've never opened the pages of the Bible before, there's something about this story that you have come across because it's so ingrained into our culture and our society. So powerful are the words of Jesus that 2,000 years on, even irreligious people, even people who don't believe in Jesus or think he's a myth or isn't who he claimed to be, still actually live according to some of his principles and some of his values. And it's the parable of the Good Samaritan. So let's take a look. So Jesus was telling the story, and he says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, they beat him, and they went away, leaving him half dead. Now, Jesus is telling a story. It's a parable that he's using to sort of make a point. But this was a common experience. Even though this is a fictional story, these events happened all the time. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho was a dangerous road. It was a valley that you walk down, and robbers would often be there to attack people who come along the way. And some people think, in Psalm 23, the valley of the shadow of death, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at myself and realize, no, actually that's Coolio. And Gangster's Paradise. I always get those mixed up. Some people think, the valley of the shadow of death in Psalm 23 is actually this valley that it goes from Jerusalem to Jericho. So it's painting the scene. This is a common picture. They understand what's going on. Now, what happens next? Just imagine you're in this story. So you're walking down the road, and many of you know what happens next. You're walking down, and you find this guy who's been left for dead. What do you do? How do you respond? Well, let's read on. Jesus says, a priest happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. And so too a Levite. Now, a Levite is somebody who works in the temple. And when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. So the priest and the Levite, these are both people who have dedicated their lives to following God, to worshiping God. Their livelihood, their lives, their jobs are orientated towards doing what God will want them to do. So they walk down the road and they see this guy and they pass by on the other side. They hurry on. And you can sort of, I suppose, understand this a little bit because, this is a dangerous place. This could be a trap. This guy could be okay and he's just lying there and there could be some robbers hiding behind another rock or something ready to pounce on them. The best thing that could happen is that it slows them down in their day, but they could be at risk, they could be on danger, so they choose to not help. And often when I read this story, I sort of picture them sort of walking down and seeing the guy there and sort of just doing this and whistling. I can't whistle, but if I could whistle, whistling and walking by. But that's not the case, because the road from Jerusalem to Jericho is this steep valley, as I said, that you go down, and you don't sort of walk down the bottom of the valley. It's dark and it's dangerous. Loads of places for people to hide, but also the area, and because of the geography, is liable to flash flooding at any time. Water could pour down over the top and into the valley. So you just don't walk down the bottom of the valley. So when people were taking this road, they walk higher up, on the sides of the valley, because it's safe and you can see where you're going. So when Jesus says that this priest and this Levite, two people who probably should know better, passed by on the other side, I think what Jesus is saying is they come across this guy and they see him in the distance and they think to themselves, do I want to get involved in this? Do I want to help this guy? No. So how do I avoid this? Well, I can't stay on this road, so I'm going to go down into the bottom of the valley, and I'm going to climb up the other side of the valley to avoid helping this person. How far are you willing to go out of your way to not help somebody in need? That's exactly what Jesus is saying. Look at the lengths that they're willing to go to not get involved. So what happens? Well, many of us know what happens. A Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. And he went to him and he bandaged his wounds and he pouring on oil and wine. And then he put the man on his own donkey and he brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Now, Samaritans and Jews were enemies. They didn't get on. Actually, the Jews looked down on the Samaritans. They thought that the Samaritans had compromised their faith. So they were enemies. They were at odds with people. And so Jesus telling this story, a priest and a Levite, 2 upstanding members of the community who have dedicated their lives to following God, to worshiping God, who should know better, ignore this guy and go to great lengths to not help him. But this Samaritan comes across, and he goes to great lengths and to great cost to actually help the guy, and he puts him on his own donkey, and whatever he was doing, he stops doing that. He gets distracted from the important stuff that he was about. Where was he going? What was his day planned? He stops all of that, and he goes out to his own pocket. He doesn't just dump him with the innkeeper as he could have done. He gives him money. He stays with him for a day. The next day he gives him money. He says, I'm not going to come back, and if I owe you more, I will pay you when I get there. Now, Jesus is telling this story in response to a question about who is my neighbor, in response to what does it mean to love the person in front of you. And that, this is what Jesus says. Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And it's an obvious question. It's an obvious answer. The one who stopped to help is the neighbor. The priest and the Levi ignored him. And even though Jesus is talking about, what it looks like to love the person in front of us, and our neighbor is anybody who we come into contact with, I think we can rephrase this question for what we're exploring and what we're talking about when it comes to happiness. And so let me ask you this question. Which of these three do you think was happier after this event? As they laid in bed that night, I'm sure the Samaritan was happy. Not the Samaritan, the guy who was robbed is happy because of that. But as they laid in bed that evening, just running over the events of that day, as the priest and the Levite lay in bed and think, yeah, I saw that guy and yeah, I didn't want to help. So I went to great risk of myself, and cross over to the other side so I don't have to do anything about that. What did they think? Put yourself in their shoes. If you were the priest or the Levite who ignored him, or the Samaritan who went out of time and pocket to help, which one would make you happier? The priest and the Levite had more time. They had more money as a result of this. They just carried on their day. It didn't actually cost them anything. But at the end of the day, were they happier than the Samaritan? The Samaritan, his day was disrupted. He couldn't get home to watch the chariot racing that he was wanting to watch. And it cost him. It went out of pocket. He couldn't buy those new sandals or whatever it is that he was after that day. But which one is happier? Well, the Samaritan. As the Samaritan laid in bed that evening thinking about the events of his day, of course he's happier. Even though he went out of his way, even though he lost his time, even though he went out of his pocket, he was happier. And we know that to be true because we know deep down that when we give ourselves away, we actually discover something that we can't find when life is all about us. And that's because it's hardwired into us. Helping others is in our DNA. And the studies have shown that actually people with the greatest levels of job satisfaction are people whose jobs are orientated around helping others, looking after others, caring for other people, that there seems to be a high degree of job satisfaction in those roles. People who are self-obsessed, people who are selfish, people who are always all about them are never happy and won't be happy and can't be happy. So this is the truth, which I'm sure you know, but it's something that we need to move from actually knowing in our heads to actually allowing it to be transformation, that we do something as a result of it. If you want to be happy, you have to find a way to give yourself away. If you want to be happy, you have to find a way to give yourself away. And a common response to this statement, because we know it to be true, but then we think, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. And you know what? I understand that. I understand that there's seasons of life where life is just so full on and so busy. And maybe you're in one of those seasons right now. Maybe you're in a season of life where you've got young kids and it takes all of your energy and your focus to get them out of bed and to get them into their school uniform and to keep them alive. And at the end of the day, you might have had a shower and the kids are alive, and that's a win. That's okay. That's okay. Or maybe you've got elderly parents, and actually, again, so much of your time is focused on looking after them and supporting them. If you're doing that, if you're living your life in a situation where actually so much of your time and energy is spent on other people, you are doing what Jesus is doing. You are giving yourself away. So be kind to yourself and cut yourself some slack. But sometimes we will say that, and what we actually mean is, I don't have enough time because my time is about me and I want to do what I want to do when I want to do. And when you look at the priest and the Levite and the Samaritan, the reason the Samaritan stopped to help wasn't because he had more time than the priests and the Levites. They were all about something. They all had busy things to do. I know they're fictional characters, but as we think about it, he didn't stop because he didn't have anything better to do. He just chose to use his time and his money in that way. We are better off emotionally and physically when life isn't all about us. We are better off, we are better people, and we are happier people when life isn't all about us. And Jesus is painting this picture for us. And what he's not doing in this story is saying, be like the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan isn't the role model for us. The Good Samaritan is a fictional character. Jesus is our role model. He's the person, he's telling us a story about what he's like and the things that he's done and what his character is all about. And Jesus is saying, be like me. This is what I'm like. This is what I've done for you. And, a bit later on, the disciples, they're having this argument about, this is hilarious. They're having an argument about who's the greatest follower of Jesus. The irony in that, no, I'm better. No, I'm better. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest. And Jesus gets fed up with them. And I think you might want to clip them around the ears. But in response to this, he says, the Son of Man, that's a phrase that he used to describe himself. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. They're arguing about who's the greatest follower of Jesus. And Jesus says, you've missed the point. In doing this, you're thinking it's all about you. I am not all about me. The reason I've come is not for me. The reason I've come is for you. A bit later on, John records for us that Jesus says, the reason I've come is so that you may have life, but not ordinary life, life in abundance, overflowing of life. Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve. Jesus came to give himself away. And he says, so be like me, follow me. So, we want to be like Jesus. Don't be like this. Oh, that's the wrong photo. Sorry, quickly, let's take that off. That was the Dead Sea. This is a picture of the Dead Sea. I don't know why that's up there. The reason the Dead Sea is called the Dead Sea is because nothing lives in it. It is 400 meters below sea level. And the thing about the Dead Sea is water flows into it, but nothing flows out of it. And it's dead. There's no life within it. Yeah, the mud is good for your skin. My skin was really good after that mud bath. But actually, there's no plants alive in there. There's no animals that are alive in the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea takes and it takes and it takes, but it doesn't give. And that's why there's no life. And you probably knew that. You probably knew something about the Dead Sea, that there was those sort of things, and you can float in it, it's really salty and all those sort of things. But there's no life in it. That's why it's called the Dead Sea. But here's something that perhaps you might not know. The Dead Sea is actually shrinking, which is a mystery. How could something that takes and takes and take and doesn't give shrink? And it's a complete mystery. And there's reasons for why, the exporting the minerals and those sort of stuff, but nothing to the extent of why the Dead Sea is shrinking to the level that it's shrinking. It takes and it takes. It consumes and it acquires. If you do not find a way to give your life away, you are like the Dead Sea. If you just consume and take and acquire and exercise your way to happiness, if you think life is all about you and you want to get out of this life everything that you can possibly take from this life, you are like the Dead Sea and you will never be happy. And actually, if that's what your life is like, you are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. If your life is all about you, this is what your life would be like. You were not designed to be like this. This is why it's so frustrating. This is why people who have everything seem to feel like they have nothing, that there's something missing, because something is missing. Because we were created for something more. We were created for something bigger. We were created for something better than this. We were created to give ourselves away. As long as you are all about you, you will never be happy. Now, you know this to be true. You know this is true. But if I was to look at your time, if I was to look at your money, if I was to look at the way that you orientate your life, do you still do this? We know we will never find happiness in being about ourselves, but so often we default to just being about ourselves. And this is what I want, and I want to go there, and I want to do that, and I want to be like that. And if only I could have that, then I would be happy. And it never works. It never works. Now, So we need to find a way to not do this. We need to find an alternative. We need to reorientate ourselves. And the challenge in this is that then we can think, okay, well, then I need to do a bunch of other things. And then if I do these other things, I will be happy. And that doesn't work either, because happiness isn't found in a to-do list. Happiness is found in a shift of approach, a shift of attitude. It actually is found in reorientating ourselves and pointing ourselves in a different direction. And when we do that, we naturally want to help others. We naturally want to give ourselves away. So just thinking, okay, I'm going to volunteer on a team, or I'm going to help my neighbor, those things. Well, that's a great thing to do, and there will be benefit from that. But it won't help you have that true, lasting happiness, because you have to shift something deep within you to do that. So this is the question that we've been asking throughout this series. We're going to get the band up as we wrap up our time together. What makes you happy? And we've looked at a whole bunch of things. And, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that's going to make a difference in your happiness? When you came in, hopefully, you were given one of these cards. If you didn't get one, there's some on the table at the back. And on the back of it, it has this question, the statement, this will make me happy. What I'd love you to do is to think about that. When all is said and done, a lot more is said than done. We spent 5 weeks exploring this sort of stuff. These are the things that we've talked about. And, we come and we sing and we sit and we listen and we chat and we drink coffee and then we go home and then we repeat and we do the same thing over and over again. But does anything change? Do we actually do anything differently? Do we discover anything different? Do we take anything that God is doing in our lives and apply it and live differently to find that level of happiness that God has for us? So what I'd love to do, we're going to create a little bit of space as the band are going to play through a song, is think about that. What is it that I can actually do that will make me be happy? And there's pens at the back as well. So when we finish, you can write that down and have this. And I'd love you to keep hold of this. Put it in your wallet or your pocket or your Bible or on your dashboard or your desk or by your TV, somewhere where you will see it and be reminded of it. Because the stuff that we've talked about throughout this series, right at the start, we discovered that actually happiness isn't found in a thing. No thing will make me happy. So perhaps I need to shift my attitude about going after or consuming or acquiring stuff. We looked at the Beatitudes and Jesus' happy list and actually this whole bunch of countercultural things that actually we think happiness is found over there, but Jesus says, no, happy people are these sort of people. Happy people will have different attitudes that affect our actions. So maybe there's an attitude or an action that you need to shift on here. Paul helped us see that happiness is found by having peace with God, by being right with God and actually recognizing our need for God. Maybe that's something that you need to do to get right with God to make you happy. Last week, Roger talked about money and our use of money. And if we use money just for us, we'll never be happy. But actually the correct use of money, we can find happiness in there. Maybe your pursuit of wealth is getting in the way of your pursuit of happiness. And today we've talked about giving yourself away. Actually, how can I orientate my life so it's not all about me and it's actually about other people? So what is it? What is your thing? Have a think about that. And then before you leave, write something down on this card so that when all is said and done, something is done. And you see the shift in you. We started this series with another truth. And that is that God wants you to be happy. He wants you to discover a depth of happiness that is far deeper than the happiness you can ever find when you consume or you can acquire or you exercise your way there. He wants you to discover true, lasting, meaningful, transformative happiness. So lean into Him and see what He has for you. And do something differently to discover that. Let's stand together. Let's sing together. Let me pray for you and for us. Father God, I thank you that you want us to be happy. I thank you that you have more in this life for us. And Lord, forgive us for when we settle for second best. Forgive us for when we just go after the things that we want and we think we're the center of the universe and we think life is all about us. Forgive us, help us, challenge us, encourage us, and equip us to live differently, to do things differently, to orientate our lives away from ourselves and to you and to other people. And as we do that, Lord, I pray that you'd help us, you'd encourage us, you'd support us, and you'd strengthen us. Lord, help us to discover the happiness that you have for us. Amen.